middle of the, as I said, extremely subtle concept to understand that the oir atzmi, oir that is befinas gilim ho'etzem, is also only a ha'ora. So we'll go back and we'll pass through until to the point where we stopped yesterday. The line begins from the word muzdal erech. That's a few lines below the middle of the page in the Aleph. What we said just prior to this was that there is no such a thing as having hamshochis eres atzmim automatically, because there is an etzem, there is eres atzmim, because the etzem is what's called muzdal be'erech, is remote from the oil. It's in a different category totally. And in order that there should be oiras atzmi, it has to be solicited. It has to be drawn. Because ein b'yerech. V'yav gam ha'oir. And even the oil, that type of oil, lei shehu b'vchinas gilui ho'etzem, the oil that does it in the status that the oil in that state, at that level, as it is, b'vchinas gilui ho'etzem, that the whole presence of the oil is that the etzem is begilui. It does not have its own presence, does not have a functional presence. It is b'vchinas gilui ho'etzem, the fact that the etzem is nisgala, that level of the oil. So therefore that oil really represents etzem, doesn't have any extraneous function. However, even that oil is be'emes, be'ein erech klal legabe ho'etz. In truth, that oil also is be'ein erech, totally out of the realm of the etz. Although that the whole presence of the oil is the etz. And the explanation for that is, and how do we understand this? Sheharei. I want to explain the meaning of the word sheharei. The translation, so to speak, the literal translation, harei, is behold. And what is the implication of the word behold? It is that this which I am going to explain to you is not something that I'm going to explain to you in some kind of a logical presentation. I'm calling your attention to focus in and look at this. Sheharei, for behold. If you do not focus on the eats and itav on your own, then there is nothing I can point to. I cannot explain it to you. This is the principle of sheharei. On the other hand, if you do focus in and you do focus your attention to see this from your own truth, then you will be able to identify it. So we say that the oil, even the oil as it is a gilim min ho'etz, its whole presence is only the fact that there is an etzem, and he's the gilim of the etzem. It is still bein erech legabe ho'etzem. Sheharei, for behold, ha'oil hu b'chinas ha'ora lavad. The oil is only a ha'ora. She'ein boy min ho'etzem. Where in this oil there is not from the etzem. There is not any aspect of the etzem itself. What is there in the oil? we say that this is the oil b'chinas gilui ha'etzem. It has the gilui ha'etzem, it doesn't have etzem. Das means ein ba min ha'etzem. And ha'ora levad, we already, this was discussed yesterday, and ha'ora means, yes indeed, it alludes to an etzem, but it is not in itself an etzem. How does an oir allude to the etzem? That the statement, so to speak, the presentation of the oir is, look, this is what the reality is. There is no way to explain this but for the fact that this is real. This is the ha'ora min ha'etzem. Like we said yesterday, we discussed it at great length, that Odem Shein the Beis Eine Odem. Or even closer to home, perhaps we can even relate to it even better. A human being has a name at birth. What does the name stand for? What is the significance of having a name? A name is for the purpose of being referred to externally, which means that his presence is recognizable as a presence not only to himself, it's a real presence. He's present in the entire reality. That's the name. Even though he has no function at the birth, there's nothing he can do. There's no point of calling him because he cannot respond. But out of respect of the truth of his presence, I give him a name. So this is the principle of a ha'ora. The name is a ha'ora. So it's a ha'ora of what? A ha'ora of an answer.
Why do we say that it's only, what's the quality of it that makes it ha'ara balad? That it's it's not the real person, it's just a name.
There's nothing in the name. The name cannot create a ha'ara. The etzem creates a ha'ara. The name cannot create a ha'ara. If the name were not referring to the person, could the name be referred to? Can the name be thought of? They give names to dogs. That makes it a ha'ara of an etzem.
The ha'ara of the person that they could be so, can make such a choice that you give a name to a dog.
Shein bin etzem. He does not have of the etzem. like in form of speech, you cannot take this oil and make that the etzem. V'areihu b'bchinas ayin mamash. And thus this oil, but on the contrary, this oil atzmi qualifies as qualifies as ayin mamash, truly ayin, non-presence. Rotzo leimar. What I mean to say is bebchinas heder dover, in a state of heder dover, not an ayin, which is a source for a power for creation. Heder dover, non-presence. Omitzius, heder dover omitzius ma, and any kind of mitzius presence. Meyachar she'enoi atzmi. Since that this oir is not an atzma, meaning the oir is not there because of itself. Why is the oil there? Because there is an etzem. It is not in and of itself. It is representative of an etzem. B'chinas gilui ho etzem, but it in itself is not an etzem. Came, and therefore, if that's the case, relative to the etzem himself, shehu bechinas ho'atzmi, which is that aspect which is called ho'atzmi, the essential, the essence in itself, v'yesh ho'amiti, and the true being, true yesh, the opposite of ayin. Yesh ho'amiti. The influence of the word yesh ho'amiti is the yesh as we encounter yesh and as we perceive yesh is a yesh that can be encountered, that you can touch and see. That's a yesh. And if you could not see it, you could not touch it, then it's not a yesh. Yesh ho'amiti is in the opposite category completely. It cannot be touched, it cannot be seen. Its Yeshus is from the truth perspective. He cannot not be. That's the Yeshua. Not that he comes into being because he can be seen and touched. He's a presence that cannot be not be. So this is the Atzmi. Yeshua Amiti. So there, in comparison, the oil who bechinas ayin, I'm sorry. Harei ha'oil who bechinas ayin be'etzem. The oil is in essence ayin, not yesh. On the contrary, if the oil were yesh, then it would not be presenting the yeshu amid, the etzem, representing itself. It is ayin. It is totally transparent, showing, pointing only to the ayin, to the Yeshu Amiti. Einoi be'erech klal u'klal. It's totally not be'erech, not in proximity to the Yeshu Amiti. Like we say, a king makes the entire country. He gives the entire country a reality presence. And everyone in the country and everything in the country has no significance, no value relative to the king himself. And everything in the country is real because there is a king in the country, because of his presence. This presence is what's called the ha'ora of the king. the way it is referred to as apostle Melech Shmoi Nikra Aleim. Melech, his name is called, is applied to everything that is that is in his domain, and that name gives it a real presence. But the name itself is a non-presence. It is the atzmius of the Melech, the truth of the Melech, that pardon me, that creates this name. And how does it create this name? As we speak many times, an etzem is everywhere. An etzem, the presence of an etzem does not need to be established by any kind of a practical activity. Because an etzem is inherently bli gvul, and so too is his presence bli gvul. And yet, this presence, ein minhu etzem klal, it is not in itself an etzem. Just one second. It's not in itself an etzem. To the extent that it is conceivable that something within the king's domain that has been raised and strengthened by virtue of being connected to the king, by virtue of being in the king's service, should then get up and rebel against the king. Losing cognizance that his whole mitzvah is due to the fact that he is in the service of the king. Haman, and the Melech asked him what should be done to someone and the Melech wants to honor. So he says they should have the garment of the king, and then he alludes, Vashanitan Kesem Makaba, the one who wears the crown of rulership, of reign. He says he wouldn't say you should also try the crown on him. That would be too blatant. But the garment of the one who wears the crown. This little Haman is a nothing. The king has given him his whole presence. And he thinks that this present that he got from the king, that's a real thing. And it's really nothing. Overnight he hung in a tree. Okay, let's continue. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Naftali, what's yours? Ve'alkein, and therefore, we're talking about the oir, k'meishu b'bchinas ho'atzmi, gilui ho'atzmi. Therefore, im heyois, although shezehu b'chinas moir v'oir, being that this is this relationship of the etzem with the oir atzmi is in the relationship can be described as moir v'oir, the luminary, and the oir that the luminary produces. And therefore they are the very same thing. Moir is that it produces light, and oir is the light that it produces. So how can it be so distant? Mikomokom still. Le'yoy shehamoir hu b'chinas yesh amiti. Being that the moir has the quality of yesh amiti. V'ha'oir hu b'chinas ayin mamosh. And the oir is ayin mamosh. Mishum said, therefore, einon be'erech zelo zaklal. Therefore, they are not be'erech, they are not in proximity one to the other at all. Although, that the moir is that which produces oil, and oil is that which is the emanation from the moir. But their categorical distinction is whether it is a real mitzias, it's really a presence, or it's not a presence. The moir is a real presence. The oil is not a presence. Only a reflection. An illusion. Okay, very quickly I want to go into the next thing, and then mention tomorrow. Upifrat, particularly, if you go into this a little deeper, shebe'emes, that in actual truth, ein ho'atzmi b'bchinas moir klal. The atzmi is not at all in that state, in that bechina, in that aspect of being a moir. Being a moir means a luminary. A luminary means that the oil that it produces actually identifies the essence of that luminary. What is it about? Why is it there? It's a luminary, a source of light. But atzmi and oir, atzmi is not in the category of a luminary. Even though it gives off oil. But that's not what captures its significance. Being she'oir v'ziv hashemesh, as it explained elsewhere. Please don't speak. Thank you. As it's explained, speaking about the oil hashemesh, me hashemesh, as it comes from the shemesh, einay moshel mechuvan mamosh le'inyan oirin seif. It is not really an accurate moshel for oirin seif. And instead, or mechuvan yaisir, a more accurate moshel is ha-moshel b'hamhogas oir mehoeven teif. This the light, or the brightness, the what do you call it, of oil that comes from eventoid, from a precious stone, which is not producing light. It's just pointing to the purity of the stone. Its meaning is not to illuminate, it is just showing what the stone is. Alright, so this is it for this morning, and we will, Mr. Hashem, discuss it tomorrow. Have a great day. Call.
The phrase "Im came im hayos shezehu echinus ma'or va'or."
Yeah.
How do you translate that?
Imayo is although that this relationship between the oil, the atzem and the oil atzmi has that relationship of moir v'oil. Nevertheless, they are not in proximity to one another. Because the oil is ayin and the moir is the yesh. And then afterwards he comes back and says that then really moir v'oil is not a real accurate notion.
Evan Tov is a better mashal.
Sorry?
You're saying Evan Tov is a better mashal?
Evan Tov says it's a better notion. Because Evan Tov hawkers the briskness, the reflection of the Adam Tov is not made to illuminate. It's just to tell you what that is a stone of it. It tells you the truth of the stone.
Sparkle.
Sparkle.
Brilliance.
Brilliance.